And what's sad, in my opinion, is that while the United States still has, I think, a lot to offer to the world, and I would never leave because it's, and no offense meant by this, and I hope none will be taken, it is the prettiest country in the world. It is, let's be honest. Even the crummy, yeah, it is, sorry, it is. It's beautiful, and it has wonderful people, and I know many of you have relatives there. A lot of you are Americans, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's been taken over by lunatics. But the core of the country has not changed. But what's so interesting to me is that the people running the United States are no longer even pretending to offer a better life to the people who live there, which is a huge change. I mean, throughout the course of my life until fairly recently, we had people I voted for in office, people I would never vote for in office, but all of them made basically the same promise. Elect me, give me power, and I will make your life better. And here's how I'll do it. I never hear anybody make that case in the United States. And what they're offering is a world in which human flourishing is, if not impossible, very difficult.
Human flourishing is very difficult because we're living in a world where we pick up our phones and see bad story after bad story and violence after violence, and young people are trying to move out and be adults and are lured into these big cities. Oh, well, surprise, once you get to these big cities where you're told your dreams will come true, your wallet will be empty because they practically charge you to breathe the air there, and your attention span will diminish because your eyes are just glued to your phone for so long that you can't look up for a minute to, I don't know, make friends around you. I don't know, that kind of sounds like prison to me.
The ruling party is the party of the childless, the unmarried, the people who are working for low wages for large corporations and living in tiny apartments in overcrowded cities that are rife with crime. That's not a cliche, that's true. It's not a talking point. It's true. Who votes for the people who run the United States right now? People who are, again, working for big nonprofits or big banks, living in crowded conditions, very often alone, in big soulless cities, having their food delivered by immigrants, and spending their time glued to a screen. What does that sound like to you? It sounds like prison, actually.
That's what people mean when they say get out of big cities. It's like not just a crime thing. It's not just an economic thing. It's like a go outside and touch some grass thing. And it's a human connection thing. It's a friendships and families and building bonds, that sort of thing. Being able to go outside and see, I don't know, a backyard instead of gray, lifeless buildings. How much time do people who actually live and work in these lifeless cities, how much time do they spend in nature? Tucker's talking about rooting yourself in the real world, in the realness of nature, and getting out of these offices and these 2x4 cubicles and looking around and seeing people communicating, engaging with others, not just being locked onto your phone an entire day.
When people violate our laws in the United States, how do we punish them? Well, we execute a few, not very many. But mostly, our harshest punishment is locking them in a small cell where they can't see the sky, where their food is delivered through the bars, often by immigrants, from the commissary, which is the Uber Eats of prison, where they have to sit cut off from nature and in solitude for years. Well, that's the life of your average Democratic voter.
He's not wrong. That's exactly the life of a modern day Democratic young voter. They're locked up in their apartments, especially after all the COVID lockdowns, where they were enforced to not leave their apartment, to not look around, to not breathe the air of anybody else around them, to work their jobs from their computers for 8+ hours a day, only communicate with your Uber Eats driver when he drops off your dinner once a day. I'm old enough to remember when we weren't allowed to leave our houses to go to church, but we were allowed to go join the movements in the streets of rioting and burning down buildings. Now, I know what you're going to say. It's Tucker Carlson. A lot of people think he's the most divisive person on the internet, divisive person on TV. He's the loud guy, right? But you have to admit that he's making a lot of good points here, and he's kind of spot on.
Solitude, isolation, cut off from nature. Who are the people who oppose this?
This isn't even necessarily a Republican or a Democratic talking point. This is just something that I think people can agree on. Human connection requires us to put down phones, to stop watching the news, to once again, get outside and touch some grass with people that you love. I've lived in 2 very big cities, and I grew up very, very close to another large one. So I'm not here trying to argue that living, in or near cities is not a fulfilling experience, because it is. I'm still here to tell the tale. But it is important to realize the weight that these cities can have on a person and their friendships and their stress of their job. The ruling party of this country wants you to be alone. They want you to be isolated. We don't have to succumb to that. We are still free. Moral of the story, get up, go outside, go touch some grass, and just wake up.